Year 5. Freezing your tiny fingers off while dragging firewood through a snow-covered Swiss village called Erschmatt 1467. It's beautiful, if you ignore the part where it's cold enough to kill you. Your parents basically mummify you in 5 layers of wool. Not because they're overprotective, but because if they don't, you might freeze and drop dead. Just ask the family's dead goats. Oh wait, you can't. They froze last week. The cold has already killed your animals. The crops? Laughably useless. You eat twice a day, morning and night. Afternoon? That's just medieval Switzerland's idea of intermittent fasting. But guess what? As you get older and the cold slightly backs off, things somehow get worse. Your family's clinging to survival, bartered with neighbors who are just as broke as you. Some days, the sky forgets the sun exists. Just endless clouds and the occasional dead neighbor. 4 kids died this week. You didn't cry. You're out of tears. You just clench your fists and stare at the snow like it's out for revenge. So you do what every 10-year-old in Erschmatt does. You pray. You beg God to save the other kids, to make things less miserable, to maybe let you go one winter without digging another tiny grave. Last year, you made your first confession. Since then, it's been non-stop lessons about hell, the devil, and, of course, witches. The priests say they're the reason for all the misery. Supposedly, witches are lurking in the village, freezing your animals and killing your crops. But you're 10, not stupid. The women they accuse don't seem capable of summoning snowstorms or whatever. Your logic? If they were that powerful, wouldn't they be living somewhere warmer? Unfortunately, no one else seems to care about logic. And while adults are busy pointing fingers at grannies, actual kids, your friends, are still dying. So you decide you're going to save as many children as possible. So while you're learning the usual stuff from your mom, like how to milk goats without getting kicked in the face, you start asking her real questions like, hey, how do I stop a toddler from dying of fever? At first, she says absolutely not. Says the world isn't what it used to be, and knowing too much could get you killed. She's not wrong. But you're stubborn. Every no sharpens your will. Eventually, she gives in. Not out of agreement, but exhaustion. At night, in whispers, she shows you what the village doesn't see. How to grind dried nettle for fever. How to pack pine resin for wounds. How to make old John stop complaining and start chasing his wife again. Yeah, you learned that one too. Still, it's not enough. You want more. You hear your aunt in Albanen is basically a healing legend. She delivers babies, stops infections, probably resurrects frogs or something. So you beg your parents to let you train with her. They're horrified. Albanen's dangerous. Midwives there already have targets on their backs. The church doesn't trust them, and midwife is one skipped mass away from witch. They say no. You beg again and again. You wear them down like ice on a mountainside. Eventually, with one last nervous glance toward the church tower, they say yes. You're going to Albanen. Let's just hope you don't come back in chains. When you show up in Albanen, you notice people get real weird when you mention your aunt. Most won't even point you toward her house. They act like just knowing her might summon the devil. Then you meet her, and it's like, what? Your aunt is one of the kindest people you've ever met. She goes to Mass every week, cross always around her neck. The only blood she touches is during childbirth, saving lives, not ending them. But nobody cares about facts. Gossip is easier to believe than truth, especially when it fits a good witch story. One night while grinding dry chamomile, you ask, how did you learn all this? She leans in, glances around to make sure no one's listening, and then reaches under the table and pulls out a glowing silver box. A laptop. It's Surfshank VPN, she whispers. With it, I can change my virtual location and access censored medical scrolls from every kingdom. You blink. You're telling me you unlocked healing secrets by pretending to be from somewhere else? Exactly, she nods. I connect to different servers and boom, new content, new knowledge, new ways to treat dying kids. They'd burn me alive if they found out, which is why Surfshark keeps everything private. No logs, no traces. I'm safe even on public Wi-Fi. But isn't that expensive? Not really. It works on unlimited devices. So while I'm decoding childbirth stuff, you can stream documentaries from other kingdoms. And if someone regrets it, 30-day money-back guarantee. So, Click the link in the description or visit surfshark.com/sticktory to get an extra 4 months. After a few months, you've learned more about healing, childbirth, and humanity than you ever did back home. You return to Ushmat at 14, taller, wiser, more capable, and, unfortunately, pretty. That's when the bad news hits. Your parents have found you a husband. The boy's the son of a wealthy neighbor, which in your village basically makes him royalty. Your parents are thrilled. This marriage could save you from poverty. But you're not here to be saved. You're here to save others. Getting married would mean kids. Your own kids. Kids who might die young like everyone else's. You didn't study for years just to roll the dice on your own. So you say no. Big mistake. Your dad is not a fan of this plot twist. You beg for time to heal others before being forced into a life you don't want. Your dad's like, absolutely not. But your mom gets it. And after some convincing, probably involving tears and maybe passive-aggressive silence, she talks him down. So you get time. You study harder than ever. You apprentice under the best midwives and herbalists you can find. By 19, you're kind of a big deal. People from all over come to you for help. Fevers, headaches, stubborn rashes, bad dreams, you name it. You save lives. You're loved. For a minute, things are actually good. Then, of course, your dad ruins it. He's back on his favorite topic, marriage. Everyone your age is already married. You're the last holdout. The whispers start. People say you're too picky, or cursed, or, yep, a witch. You're done. So you pack your stuff and move out. Not far, just to the edge of the village. Close enough to still help, but far enough to breathe. Your new place? Half home, half clinic, all yours. Before long, you're more influential than the Bishop of Sion. The sick come crawling to your door. The poor, the homeless, the hopeless, they find shelter with you. You're not just a healer now. You're a lifeline. One day, there's banging at your door. Panic in every knock. A man shouts that his wife's in labor. You grab your things and run. Turns out, the woman is the daughter of a wealthy merchant. So half the village is already there. Great, nothing like performing a high-risk delivery with an audience. But you don't flinch. You've done this before. You send the men out, the room quiets, you take her hand. Minutes later, the child slips into your arms, limp, silent. A stillbirth. Gasps echo. A few women cry. But you don't have time to grieve, because the mother's bleeding. Badly. You jump into action. Pressure, heat, tinctures, prayers. Everything you've learned pours into the next few minutes. But it's no use. She dies before sunrise. You've seen death before, but this one cracks something inside you. You don't cry, not here. Then you feel it, a stare like a blade between your ribs. The mother's sister is glaring, red-eyed, trembling, desperate for something to blame. She did this, she screams, pointing at you. She was whispering strange words before the baby came. You answer calmly, I was reciting the Ave Maria. No, you're a witch, she screams, full meltdown. The other women hush her, but their eyes, they're doing math. Witch math. You leave quietly thinking, they'll grieve, they'll come around. The whole village finds out within a day. The baby, the mother, the scream, and your name. Then they're avoiding you altogether. At first, a few people still come for help. Then fewer, then none. You're crushed. These were people you saved, children you delivered, fevers you broke. And now, you're the villain in their bedtime stories. Then it gets worse. After Mass one Sunday, the priest clears his throat and announces that you've been summoned to appear before the ecclesiastical court in Luke. No one looks at you. No one defends you. You're not surprised. The whispers have turned into a full-blown firestorm. They say you cursed the crops, killed the livestock, caused the stillbirth. The priests want answers, and you're going to give them. The next day, you pack your things and head to Luke, hoping for fairness. Instead, you're greeted like a war criminal. Side eyes, whispered prayers, people making the sign of the cross just because you exist. They ask you questions, ridiculous ones. Did you curse cows? Did you walk barefoot through a snowstorm and not die? Must be witchcraft. Then comes the serious stuff. They claim to have witnesses who saw you cause ice storms and sacrifice children to the devil. Guess who those witnesses are? Your neighbors. the ones you healed, the ones whose babies are alive because of you. You deny everything, obviously, but that just makes them more suspicious. So they bump your case up to Sion, the diocesan court, basically where the real pain starts. You get there the next day, and guess what? Same questions, same blank stares, same assumption that you're lying. They throw you in prison, and now comes the real investigation. The kind that involves no food, no sleep, and pain that makes you forget what your own name sounds like. But then the torture starts. They rip out your fingernails, leave you freezing in a cell for 5 nights straight. Your body starts shutting down. You're 3 weeks in when it hits you. This doesn't end until you give them what they want. In the cell next to you, you meet other women. Same story, same lies, same broken bodies. Another week passes. You can barely stand. Your skin is torn. You haven't eaten in days. So finally, you confess. To everything. Yes, you flew through the night to secret Sabbaths. Yes, you kissed the devil. Yes, you cursed livestock. Anything to make the pain stop. Every word feels like chewing glass, but at least it's over. 2 weeks later, the Bishop of Sion delivers your sentence. You confessed, so surprise, you're guilty. But apparently, that's not enough. They want more. They want names. You already know what happens if you refuse to name names. More torture. And after everything they've done to you, you're not surviving another round. So yeah, you give them names. Your aunt and 3 healer friends. Does it feel like betrayal? Yeah, because it is. You just signed their death warrants. The church wastes no time. They send bailiffs to drag your aunt and friends to Sion, the same village that once begged for your help, now watches silently as the women who kept them alive are marched off in chains. Someone screamed, "Witch!" and suddenly facts are optional. The Bishop of Sion himself reads your verdict out loud, like he's announcing the winners of some twisted medieval talent show. And the verdict? Death by fire. Not just you, your aunt, your friends, all of you. Execution to be carried out just outside Ershmot. Because, obviously, burning women alive is the best way to purify a village. They take you back to Ershmot that same day, but they don't burn you right away. That happens in the morning. You spend the entire night praying, not for escape. You're past that. You pray for peace. If this is a test from God, you're more than ready for the final score. At dawn, the guards come. You're pulled up roughly and dragged outside. You start your final prayers. Then you see them. 4 pyres. This isn't a nightmare. You're going to be burned alive for crimes you didn't commit. Villagers from all over show up to watch, like it's a festival. Some shout curses, others throw stones. A few just stand there, silent, including the priests. They calm the crowd and start a sermon, something about justice and repentance. Justice? You were tortured into a confession they wrote for you. If this is justice, it's got a sick sense of humor. After the sermon, one of your healer friends cracks. She begs for mercy, says she repents, and she gets it. They strangle her before the fire reaches her. They call it mercy, and in this nightmare, maybe it is. Your aunt sings psalms as they tie her to the pyre. Her voice doesn't crack once. You stay quiet. You don't even flinch until you look into the crowd. You see faces you once saved, mothers whose children you brought into the world, men whose wounds you healed. Now they stare like they don't know you, like you're just some shadow of evil they never invited in. And that's what breaks you. You cry. For the first time in public, you let the pain show. And then the flames begin. Screams tear through the air. Smoke blurs your vision. The fire wraps around you like some cruel second skin. Your aunt cries out in pain. You don't. You stay still until everything goes silent. You didn't kill anyone. You didn't curse the fields. You didn't serve the devil. You served people. You lived with kindness. You fought for life. But they called you a witch, forced you to confess, burned you alive. You weren't evil. You were just a good woman born in the wrong century.